Hi, welcome to Guitar Time. I'm Robert Knoll. This lesson is about major arpeggios. We have 5 forms that go along with the 5 forms of scales that I have, okay? For your major, dominant, minor, blues scales and such, all scales, we have 5 forms. We also have 5 forms of arpeggios. We're going to be dealing with the major on this video. So I want to start just like we have a Form 1 scale in this area of the guitar. We also have an arpeggio that goes along with it. So you're doing, these arpeggios are basic. One, you have a root, you have a third, a fifth, another root, in this case it's 2 octave, another third, and you're barring the 4th finger for the 5th and the root. And then you want to come back. 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1. You want to work these really slow at first. So you want to work them slow, and you also want to be able to play them back to back with your Form 1 major scale. Form 2 starts on the 5th fret with the 2nd finger, and it's 2, 1, 4, 4. We bar the 4th finger here. It's all right for those notes to ring. So your root, your 3rd, and your 5th, and you're barring for the 5th and the root. Then your 3rd finger's coming in. You don't want to bend that finger in, you want to bend it out. And be mindful of your finger placement. And then we're barring the 2nd finger, but I'm kind of rolling it. I'm going to roll that 2nd finger from the 5th to the root, and then I'm going to roll it back. So that's what I call a roll technique, okay? And then you would come in back with your 3rd, and then bar the 4 for the root and the 5th, 1st finger, root. Goes along. Okay? When you work on it, you'll get fluent. You'll be able to start to see with arpeggios and scales how the landscape of the geography of each form 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you'll be able to see it. You'll have a visualization of it because you've learned your intervals. Always good thing to say your intervals, just like I was too. You know, root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd, 5, 1, 5, major 3rd. It's always good to do that so that you're really putting that together. Number 3, this would be Form 3. I'm going to start with the 1st finger this time on A. So I'm going to do this great big stretch, two whole steps, right? And that's giving me the major 3rd, and then I'm barring the 3rd finger for the perfect 5th and the root this time. Coming in with the 2nd finger again for the major 3rd, and likewise, just like the Form 2, now I've got the 1st finger barred. So and then that's our basic arpeggio. From root to root, these are all 2 octave arpeggios. We could also I added the extra 3rd because it just kind of sounds pretty to work on Form 3 and get that. So you want to work on that, maybe the raking technique. But you also want to work this slow for a while, so you see the intervals. The 3rd, 5th, 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd, root. Finger placement too, very, very important. That's Form 3, and that would go along, of course, with your Form 3 scale, right? Major scale. Okay, Form 4. Form 4 is actually a 1 octave. This is what's different about Form 4. We've only got notes for 1 solid octave, but we're going to add some extra tones. So we're going to start it on the 5th fret, just like if I was asking you to play a form 4 major scale. We've got extra notes, but we have, there's our arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 1. And then we're going from 1, right? Back to 5, 3, 1. So you should practice it just as it is, just as the exercise. I'm using fingers 4, 3, 1, 2. So you should practice that way, but then we've got these extra notes. So I like you to get, you're at a root, we're going to add the 3rd and the 5th. So we get, kind of sounds nice when we add that 5th and end on the 5th, which is E. Back to root, and then we bar the 4th finger for the 5, and then we grab the 3rd with the 1st finger. I'm barring the 4. And then you want to end on the root. Okay? You work on it, you get better and better at it. So as you're getting to these higher on the fretboard, we're getting now into the upper register. The frets are getting closer, so you know you've got to take that into consideration in your technique and you're building your skills, that you should be able to play arpeggios and scales as well in the upper register as in the lower register. So here I go now to form 5. All right. So form 5, I'm starting with my 1st finger on the 12th fret A. Okay, so this is an A, and I'm going to do the octave. So this is once again a 1 octave arpeggio. We're starting here. We're going 2 whole steps with the 4th finger, barring the 3rd finger. 1, 3, 5, 1. But I've added the extra tones. So we get with A, and then we bar, coming back, 3rd finger bars, and then 4th finger kind of comes in. And then with this scale, instead of adding extra notes, I just added the 5. So you want to hit, and this is like your form 5 scale. And then you have these extra notes, but I've just, you should also see that this is your type 2 bar chord. A bar chord, the middle 4 strings, your root, your 5th, your 3rd, and your root. We can add actually up here in this position, we could add the extra A up there. Have a nice voicing. So there's your form 5. So once again, you also want to look at going back to form 1 now. Just a little recap here. Let me show you a little better look here. So when I do my arpeggio, you should see that you've got an A chord here. 1, your root, 3rd, 5, 1. If I add the next note, so we can see our A chord here in the middle. Here's another A chord, so I can see, if I just did, that would be an A6. So I see like 3, 4 different A chord inversions here. We'll talk about inversions. You'll learn about that. It's a good thing to know. So when I look at the other form 2, well, I see kind of a power chord here. I can see a 1, 3, 5, but I see a first inversion here, or root position, I'm sorry. We got root, major 3rd, But we're actually playing it with different fingers when you do the arpeggio. 4, 3, but there it is. And then I see that top part of the chord that we're playing 3, 2, 2, okay, is an inversion with the third in the bottom, the root, the fifth, and the root. So you break these arpeggios down and you start to see the chords, the A chords in this case, that we're in the key of A, within the arpeggios. Here, it's a lovely little A major chord built, and then we could play the chord. We could even play a bigger version. And then here, as we talked about, that type 2 A chord. So when you first learn these arpeggios, it might be good to do them in A, just like I just did for you. And it would be good for you to also play the A major scale and start to look at the A chords. Where are the chords within the arpeggios? Know the intervals. Then you want to get to other keys. They're movable forms. A kind of lays out nice on the guitar, but it gets a little different looking when you get to the key of D and you do form 1 here in this area, form 2, form 3, form 4 would be way up here, and you might want to go down here for form 4 and then form 5. Key of D, it lays out differently, but they're all in order. Sometimes you play 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, and then you have to finish with 4, 5 down in this area. So it can be different, the landscape. But you want to work them in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a while. Then sometimes when you practice, just work on form 3s or form 4s for a while, and then put them all together. Find out where your weak areas are and work on those so they sound good, so you can play them fluently. And eventually gain speed, but always start slow. Slow and careful. We want to have security that you play them well, but you need to always have the trilogy. When you play an arpeggio, of course you know the intervals, so you know where the chords are. So arpeggio, chord, and scale, the 3 elements of the trilogy. You need to really get mindful of that concept, that way of thinking, okay? So when you start to jam and use solos, you can see I'm using the arpeggios as well as parts of the scales. So I'm seeing the scales, I'm seeing the arpeggios, and I'm seeing chords. So when you play arpeggios and solos, it gives it that harmonious effect. Really a neat thing about putting the trilogy together. All right, practice and work for consistency, and don't get frustrated. Just keep working on it. You'll get good at it. You'll put together, and it'll be a great part of being a musician, and your guitar skills, your technique, it's going to be very enhanced. Arpeggios.